Hello, people, and welcome to Rauta's stream, August 2026. I hope everybody is doing fine. I most certainly am, and I'm about to have a beer here. And hopefully, we get some people joining the chat. Let me see that everything is happening here. All right, we have some people popping up, so there it is. Now, welcome to the stream indeed. Already there's a good question. Is the thumbnail you as an AI generated woman? Since I didn't create the image, I can only answer it halfway, which means yes, my thumbnail wizard Chris used my face to put it in a woman, and of course there's some Finnish blueberries and whatnot. Now, how much he used AI with Photoshop to have this generated, I do not know the details, but I do know that Photoshop has a lot of AI tools. So, created with AI, created through Photoshop, which then again uses AI as part of the generation of generating the image. I kind of don't want to use the word create because technically speaking, AI doesn't create anything, but it's not created, with Chat GPT or whatever, but Photoshop. So there is always a lot of manual work when people are like, you know, creating those. Now I'm gonna check if there is some things I can. Okay, this is a super chat goal. I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna check out some of the settings which are here. On the OBS streaming service. Hello, Black Widow. Welcome to the stream as well. All right, let's get going. Let's get the show started. Today, the first beers will be once again provided by Mallasepät. Dark Labworks Porter, which is 5.2 strong. So we'll start with dark beer. This is one of the last few beers from the previous box I got from the Mallasepät brewery, and I recently picked up a new box of beers. Oops. Fuck. This is very close to, you know, getting out of the glass. Not exactly cold since they're outside. But there it is. At which point at stream we are? About 3 minutes in. So, people, today I don't have special announcements, but I have a couple of things without what I want to talk about. I had this idea that from now on, with these streams, I might compile a list of questions which people then again put on to these comments with various videos. But at some point, I forgot to list them, so I only have a couple of them listed because a lot of people have lots of questions which are not really related to any given video. Like sometimes there's a review video, and then some people ask me totally something different. Now, my point here is my attempt is to create a list of these questions, and then I can answer them with these streams, because it kind of makes no sense for me to compile a Q&A video for questions and answers separately and then having a lot of these questions being once again answered here on these monthly streams. So Now I only have a couple of them and I will soon start with them. Then, of course, I will be going through what we have coming up in terms of interviews. As you probably know, by the end of July, early August, I was at Beyond the Gates Festival and we did 8 interviews, of which 2 are now out. So there is something that is still coming out, quite a few for next 6-7 weeks. And I think that is something you might be knowing. I guess I mentioned those interviews pretty much in my Beyond the Gates recap video, and then some future events which are supposed to take place, and some other things I've been working on recently. I don't think there are any big announcements. Rauta is going to turn 10 years next year in 2027. Then there might be some things to celebrate. I haven't yet figured out what it would be. But because I'm kind of a low-key person myself, I don't even, celebrate my own birthday. I don't know if I will be doing anything special for Rauta, but I have some ideas which could be mentioned, which could be done, like adding some merchandise and all for the future. But that is still many, many months away, because that's obviously when it's happening. It's during Steelfest. Anyway, so let's celebrate the stream and you people coming around with a beer. Some dark beer, which is not something like I'm gonna drink it right away. As always, if you wanna support the channel, there are ways to do that. You can either become a Patreon supporters with Rauta's Patreon site. That is a monthly support way. You can use the super chat right here on Google, and that is YouTube, and you can donate if you want to. You can also use PayPal in case you want to do it, or buy me a coffee site, or whatever. And obviously these are totally voluntary things. As always, the money is used for Rauta's trips, which mean me getting wasted and eating fine food. No, I'm joking. They're used for plane tickets and hotels, accommodations, whatever, when I am traveling with my camera person to festivals where I get to make more interviews. Now, the good thing is, since the channel is constantly growing, even if only a little bit at a time, which means that budget-wise we are a little bit better placed than, say, a couple of years ago. Still doesn't mean we get to travel as much as I would love to, but at least we are getting a little bit more interviews these days than, well, back in the days, a few years ago. So that's why we have something like 7 interviews coming out already. That is, we have filmed 7 more after the ones that we already got from Beyond the Gates. And there's trip to Scotland in a couple of months, where I'm supposed to do a few interviews. I'm waiting some kind of a confirmation about Helsinki Metal Cruise, which is in November. And if that happens, there should be some interviews. And there's some individual gigs happening, which means I should be able to make a few interviews during the fall as well. But as you know, once the festival season is gone, once it's done, those possibilities to do interviews, especially with anything bigger in terms of bands, gets more challenging, because once the festival season is done, there are no bigger bands really coming near, and it's as such there are fewer possibilities to do these interviews. So just to let you know, in case you want to support the channel, you know what to do. But I would also like to say, don't worry about it. We'll manage somehow, and if there is no money to travel and to do interviews, then there will be less interviews. It's really simple as that. Now, as always, I will prioritize answering the very questions which are here tagged, like for example Black Widow. So tag Rauta Metal, then I will see a highlighted comment right here, and as such I get to notice and reply them in a timely fashion. So let's start with Black Widow's comment. What metal band do you think is underappreciated? That is a very tricky question for a couple of reasons. First of all, whenever I or someone else drops a name about a band that we feel is underrated, underappreciated, there are always some people to point it out. No, in fact, they're not. And sometimes the opposite happens when you feel like some band is overrated. There is obviously someone always pointing out, but actually, they're not too overrated. They are actually that big. So, my opinion about bands being underappreciated is very subjective, like totally subjective. So I could say, for example, Urgehall from Norway. In my opinion, it's one of the best Norwegian black metal bands of all times, surpassing bands like Burzum or Immortal, Satyricon, Emperor, Mayhem in terms of quality. In that sense, I could say it is underappreciated because they are, in fact, one of the best ones from Norway. However, they never became that big for a couple of reasons. First of all, the main man died many years ago. So they were not, you know, the band has been dead for quite some time. Secondly, there was that band was never touring that much. Never got the how to say the fraction. I mean, never got to push so many other bands got. So I don't know why it was. Was it chosen? Was it something that they deliberately wanted to happen? I do not know. But what I'm saying here is, if we're talking just about how the music, how good it is, how good the band has been live and all, I would say, yeah, that is a kind of a school book example of being underappreciated. Because for me, black metal is supposed to be raw, aggressive, violent, dark, sinister, all that stuff. Now, when there are bands that is overly atmospheric, the kind of a Burzum school of stuff, but without having the Burzum quality, I don't feel a lot of those bands should be that well succeeding. But like I said, this is a very subjective take. So whatever I think is underappreciated, underrated, there are always some people saying like, yeah, but they're not that good. So there is that. But there are probably lots of bands which I feel should get more recognition. One other thing which I could mention, and this is quite of a bigger band, also from Norway, is of course Enslaved. Enslaved for me is, in a way, so much more quality than a lot of those other bands which are bigger in terms of number, maybe more black metallic by the very nature, but when it comes to the quality of albums, I think a lot of those bands pale in comparison when compared to Enslaved. So these are just a couple of examples what I really feel about it. Of course, there are lots of smaller bands, the underground level bands, which don't have hundreds of thousands of fans, but merely if you go for like their social media pages, some band might have 500 followers on Facebook or Instagram or whatever, and they could be really great bands, but they just don't have the traction, to push the fan base. So lots of bands which I feel are underappreciated, and lots of that stuff which is I review. There are so many good bands with good albums out, but nobody knows them because they're not getting hyped, they're not being trendy and all that stuff. So the list is big, but the question is good. Ivan Who's is asking what are my favorite music labels. That is also a little bit tricky because favorite music label can mean a couple of different things. First of all, it could mean a label that does its job very fine, very nice, meaning they're supporting the bands the proper way, they are dealing with the PR, they're releasing top-notch music. And then there is this thing, how you feel as an artist being on a label, as opposed to someone who is like a reviewer or journalist or whatever. Now, one of my favorite labels, and this is not because we signed to this label as with Nightside now, is Osmos. Because Osmos has their own flaws. Let's start with that. They're not like really promoting stuff the way I want to. But when it comes to their catalog back in the 90s, how many great bands were signed to Osmos? Had like Marduk, Rotting Christ, Immortal, Samael, lots of bands which were really like, being great and going towards greatness. That was really the kind of label that we felt at the time, like when you would see a new Osmos album coming out. You had to check it out because it was so great with a lot of black metal bands. Just with, bands like Rotting Christ, Marduk, Immortal alone, you would be like, wow. But they had things like, Enslaved, even Dark Tranquility, when they were more aggressive, more extreme. So there's that. But favorite music labels, I mean, there are some smaller ones which have been, for example, very supporting towards Rauta. And I feel a lot of those labels are also really cool because they have been supporting us. One of them would be Vaughn Records. Why? Because the owner, the main guy, really nice person, helping me out with stuff and making sure that I got a lot of that cool stuff. Shout out could also go to Ule of Terratur Possessions for this matter. Supporting Rauta with some cool review albums, helping out, being a no bullshit guy, stuff like that is something I really like. It's Circle Productions also. There are lots of cool labels, but there are also some labels which I probably would not be that interested to sign with my own band. But that's a different story. So it obviously depends whether I'm seeing this situation as someone playing in a band and signed to a label as opposed to someone who is just receiving CDs and vinyl for review and all that stuff. Burnos Pictures is asking, for some reason I've never listened to Urgehal. I've listened to Norwegian black metal for years and never listened to them. Any recommend a good album to start? Now, my start with Urgehal was Massive Terrestrial Strike. That was really the album, the second one. This was late 90s when I found out about Urgehal through a friend. He had some contacts to No Colors Records, which released the early stuff, and that was my starting point. But then again, every album after that has been really good. The only one which I don't really like that much is Arma Christi, which is still pretty good, but as a debut album, it pales in comparison to every other Urgehal album. Atom Kinder, for example, could be a great starting point for Urgehal. So basically, any album goes. But start with Atom Kinder or Massive Terrestrial Strike, for example. The earlier stuff, and then you move on. I like when there's an older starting point and then you can kind of hear the evolution rather than start with the latest one and then go back. But that's just how I feel about a lot of bands. Doug Thorne is asking, hello, any plans to attend the upcoming Manowar gigs in Germany? Unfortunately, I don't have the budget to go to a Manowar concert in Germany. So as much as I would like to see Manowar live, that is not that possibility is out of the question with the current money. There's a good question about Helvete Dread. What is the best demo you have ever heard? There are probably more than this, but I remember this band called Murder Shock. This was very early 2000s, and I remember they were one of the few bands that actually, in my opinion, did, I think more than one, but at least 5 out of 5 demo stuff. It was so good that it was better than lots of albums out there. Unfortunately, I don't remember the name of the demo anymore. Murder Shock was the band. Then there's this band, which I still have in my collection, called Decade. D and then dash Cade. Horrible name for a band. But their way to do kind of heavy metal blew my mind. Really good vocalist, and as a demo, top notch. Once again, 5 out of 5. So something that, makes a lot of albums pale in comparison. How I listened to The Woods of Samael by Ancient North. I don't remember hearing that album. There are so many albums which I just don't remember, and sometimes they are just forgotten. Then I have to look up on my list like, hey, have I been actually listening to that? All right, I'm going to go through the previous questions as well, but whatever you tag me, I will go back to them and read them first. So hello everybody. In case I couldn't greet you individually, you're of course very welcome to the stream, and don't consider yourself offended or hurt even if I don't name you all one by one. There's an interesting question by Crow Cathedral. Do I know a YouTube channel from Australian guy who play acoustic black metal and guitar named Beautiful Death? I do not know. I gotta say, I'm not a fan of black metal played acoustic. To me, it's almost like perversion. First of all, this was a few years ago. There was this woman playing some Dark Throne and acoustic guitar, something like Transylvanian Hunger or whatever, that era. Now, there were a couple of major flaws with that stuff, but let's start with the good stuff. No, when she was playing this song, obviously, first you would recognize the song, the riff. You know, fuck, this is so good. Might have been something like En Vin av Sorg from Banterfoss or whatever, and it sounded good. You're like, yeah, this is how a good song works, even acoustic. But that's also when you realize this is not even halfway as good as it would have been with properly distorted guitar. Which is exactly where you feel like, so why would we need this acoustic version when a real guitar is so much better with the distortion, the punch, the rawness? Acoustic guitar doesn't have that rawness, that grimness, that grittiness. The second thing is, there were no vocals. Once you remove two major key ingredients from music, such as like Dark Throne, the distortion, the rawness, and also the vocals, what is really left? It's almost like, I don't know, you order a fancy pizza and you're like, wow, man. But then like, no tomato soup or whatever paste it is, no cheese. And you're like, okay, so what we have here is the dough. Like, it can still be a great dough, even if with your fucking salamis or whatever you're having. But I mean, it's like, or let me put it this way. I have this good quality beer here. What if we remove the alcohol? It still could be quite nice, but the taste would change dramatically. Not to mention it wouldn't have this nice tinge in your head when you're getting a little bit tipsy while drinking it. Like this and going yummy. What if you also removed some other ingredients from beer? Like, for example, a lot of people drink beer cold, right? So what if instead of having a cold beer, it was room temperature warm and you didn't have alcohol? Would it really be that captivating? Probably not. It could still be a beer, but non-alcoholic room temperature beer isn't exactly as tempting as something like, oh, quality beer with alcohol and also being cold. So once you change the taste and key ingredients, it's not really the same anymore. I hope you get my point. Ivan Hus is asking, what are my thoughts about King Diamond and Merciful Fate? Now, I'll start by going back to 1990s. When I first heard King Diamond vocals back in the days, I couldn't stand them. I kind of hated them, or at least disliked them to the very degree. Or times I obviously got to a little bit like used to that kind of stuff, but it wasn't my cup of tea. Now, last year, before I was going to see King Diamond at Beyond the Gates, and I was prepping for possible interview, which was kind of a promise to me. I went through the whole discography by King Diamond. Well, all the albums, but, kind of a prepping myself, whatever they had been doing over the years. I still can't enjoy those vocals. I can stand them, but I don't enjoy them. When it comes to the themes or importance what King Diamond and Merciful Fate have had, I have respect for that band. I have respect for the guitar players and the vocalist, of course, but musically it's not my thing. So I'm very divided. On the other hand, I respect. I think it is a very important band or bands in the bigger scale of seeing things. But when it comes to the actual vocalist, I cannot enjoy it. So I would be lying if I was saying, yeah, I really like it. So it's not really my cup of tea. Jay Killers is asking, what is the best black metal music video? Well, to be honest, there are not too many great black metal music videos, so I don't know if there is a single one which I would consider great. But because I was listening to Satyricon the other day, I'm still thinking Neves Divina is one of the best ones. And not just for the nudity, but it's a big part of that. Even more so because nudity has certain shock value. And of course the lady is very pretty in that video. But this is the best video as because of, being really good one. I do not know, but most black metal videos tend to suck, more or less. So I don't know if there is a best black metal video for me in my head. Dead at Night. What early Finnish bands or albums do you feel didn't get enough love and may still hold up now? Well, I pretty much went through a lot of that early Finnish black metal stuff in my Finnish history series about black metal from the 90s. I don't know if there are certain bands that really should be getting their recognition like that. I mean, you could go for individual things here and there, um, but I don't know. Get enough love. Well, let's put it this way. Finland was never as sexy as Norway, especially, and even Sweden back in the 90s. So Norway and Sweden were kind of like overshadowing whole Finland back in the days, which means that a lot of Finnish bands really didn't get the recognition, be it even the older bands like Horna, Archgoat, even to a degree, Imbel Nazarene, Beherit, and all that stuff. So I really can't say should they really deserve more love, because things are what they are. And I'm not really a romantic person, so I don't really think that a lot of those bands would have, supposed to get more love and understanding and support from the fans because it is what it is. So I don't have a good answer for that. I just think things are the way they are. There are probably a lot of hidden and forgotten gems along the lines, but I mean, so what? Helveted Red also has a good question. Which modern metal album you think gonna be future classics? Now, I'm not an expert on metalcore, deathcore, and all that stuff, so I can only make wild assumptions and guesses. But I think Lorna Shore will be later recognized as one of the game changers. First of all, they got really good fan base, like huge. They got good reviews, and a lot of people I respect for their knowledge in metal music have been praising a lot of Lorna Shore stuff. So, as an outsider who is not a Lorna Shore fan and haven't even heard most of their stuff, I think they have the potential to be really seen as future classics. Obviously, not all the albums, but some albums which are gonna be praised more. The more we distance ourselves from whatever is coming out right now or 10 years ago, the further down we rode, we will understand the meaning of how these things are. But it is hard for us to predict how the future classics will be because obviously the world is changing, and I don't really feel like, for example, in black metal there will be similar set of classic as we see from the 80s and 90s because black metal is not evolving that much anymore. There might be great albums coming in 2010s, 2020s, 2030s, who knows, but will they be seen as classic as opposed to, say, early Mortal, early Mayhem, Burzum, Marduk, Rotting Christ, that kind of stuff, Beherit, Imbel, Nazarene, whatever? I doubt it. So I guess the future classics will be something that are coming out of the newer subgenres like deathcore and metalcore, because I think pretty much all the death metal classics and heavy metal classics and thrash metal classics, etc., they are already done. With heavy metal, there won't be new Black Sabbath. There won't be new Iron Maiden. So a lot of these dinosaur bands are gonna keep their legacy, and these newcomers, as great as they might be, will be compared. Hey, this isn't the next Metallica. Come on. So I think we will need, in a way, new genres or subgenres to be born so that they can create their own respective classics. And this is not about matter of taste. Like, for example, I'm no metalcore fan. I'm no deathcore fan. I don't hate them, but so far they haven't been, the kind of stuff I would enjoy. But that doesn't mean I don't understand why they are popular, why they're liked, and why some newer generation of metalhead might look up to these bands the same way as my generation was looking up to bands like Metallica or Iron Maiden or Black Sabbath or Slayer, whatever. So Time will tell if I'm right or wrong, but I'm guessing the future classics will be something else than the current more known genres. Yeah, J Killer's One Road to Azabe is a great music video, but that's not really black metal, so that's why I wouldn't, mention Bathory videos for that matter. Do I like albumi Kohti 9 nousua? I think it's decent. I've done my Horna discography, so it's mentioned there with more detail. Have I heard Slutet from Sweden? No, I haven't. What is my favorite Immortal album? Pure Holocaust. Very simple. Now let's go back to the earlier questions. Oh, by the way, someone mentioned here, nice preview image. Yeah, Chris C likes to fuck around with my head put into female bodies to confuse a lot of you people. I think it's a fun way to create a little bit humor on the channel. And yes, Nuki was asking, is there Sepultura CD on the background? Yes, it's my favorite Sepultura, Arise. I'm currently listening to my own CDs in letter S. Just recently went through Satyricon and Satanic Warmaster albums. Now I'm here in S as Sepultura. So yeah, great album. I haven't heard the new Immolation album. I will be getting it later on when I'm doing my Immolation retrospective. Um, Ragnarok mentioned, I still think you should write a book. I want to know your backstory. Well, that would be interesting to write it someday, but I don't know how many people would be interested in my backstory. Mm. Hello, Sardinic Victory. Ragnarok, what do you want me to talk about Nightside? I mean, I'm a modest when it comes to my own band. I tend to be a modest person in general. But just ask me anything about Nightside or my other bands, and I will tell you that there are no major secrets. Do I like the new Enslaved track? I haven't bothered listening to the new Enslaved track. I noticed the new album is coming, but I'm waiting for the full album. I don't really listen to individual songs. I want the whole package. I'm not a single listener. Rob Seibert was mentioned eager to hear your other interviews. I love your interviews. Also, I totally rock a Rauta shirt. Thank you so much, Rob. I'm trying to put or make at some point new Rauta shirts for sale, at least for Rauta 10 years celebration. And yeah, I will mention those interviews very, very soon. Let's get back to the questions. Do I like the music of Sibelius? I don't really listen to Sibelius music. I've heard obviously some over the years, and I can say, yeah, some stuff like Finlandia is good stuff, but I don't really like to listen to classical music that much. Um, okay, I'm reading more comments. Trying to figure out where I left off. Hola from Argentina. Which new band you liked or been attracted to the most this year? I don't know if there are any new bands this year that really have, you know, gotten my interest because this year has been very steady. There are some really cool ones, obviously, but any major ones? I have to look at the list. Have I mentioned anything new here? Because sometimes I forget. I think all the bands this year I've been praising are older stuff. So yeah, at the moment I can't really think of anything super good that would be, really that good. I mean, does Terrestrial Hospice anymore count as a new band? Because it's been there already a few years. Where's my Thor's hammer? My Thor's hammer is just under T-shirt. Or if you mean my tattoo, yeah, buddy, here it is. Couple of Thor's hammer. Necrophagia mentioned. I remember that was interesting one. All right. There are some other comments. What's with the new Uada for me? I haven't been bothered checking out new Uada. First of all, I'm really busy with the physical review copies. Secondly, Uada was so boring live a couple of years ago that I don't really have an interest to check out Uada unless it's coming here for review. There's an interesting point. Sibelius also shaved his head and liked alcohol. Well, yeah, we both do that. Agent Robocock was asking, do I enjoy American light beer? Not specifically, but I could have it when it's the weather is hot and I'm, sweating. And then light beers have their place. So definitely good for drinking when you are like sweating and the heat is on. What else? There are so many comments which don't have questions. I'm trying to read through them. Mm. But modern metal, okay, there was this comment with Helvet the Dread. Yeah, I'm not really. I don't really care if a band or music style is modern or old school. What matters if it's good. So there is that thing about music which can or can't be classics. What happened to Peste Noir? No idea. Ragnarok was asking, "Am I on vocals?" Yes, I'm on vocals in both of my bands, Nightside and Annihilatus. I've never been much of a guitarist guy. I play some guitar, but I'm not good at it. I make sometimes riffs for Nightside, at least now I've been doing that. And for Annihilatus, I've been always making the songs, so guitar and vocals and songwriting, whereas my bandmate has been taking care of bass and drums and other guitar. Nuki was asking, realized that Vindir's first album was inspired by Enslaved's first album. What do I think? Well, I can say that Windir and Enslaved sound quite different from one another. Windir always been a little bit cheesy with the melodic style. Enslaved's debut album is quite proggy, in terms of black metal anyway. So it can be inspiring, and yet still you can make different kind of stuff. Yeah, Ragnarok. Of course, you can come to Finland. Just come here, the happiest nation on earth. Oh, Black Flame here has a cool question. If you could only listen to three black metal albums from the rest of your life, what album would you pick? If I could only pick three black metal albums, they would be Transylvanian Hunger by Darkthrone. They would be another one would be the Mysteries Dom Satanas by Mayhem, and then I would really need to think about because I kind of would like to go for Dissection Storm of the Light's Bane. On the other hand, would I really want more Dark Throne like Under a Funeral Moon? But maybe I could pick something like Bloodfire Death by Bathory. Just because it's so fucking great. And if I only had three albums, I probably wouldn't want to go two by Darkthrone, even though I think Darkthrone has like three best albums in top 10 when it comes to black metal. But I would probably want a little bit more variation. So maybe those three would be the kind of albums. Um, Phil asked me, did it interest you that Scattered Remnants remastered and released their entire pack catalog? Not the slightest. I have never even listened to the band, so I don't really care what they do remastering and re-releasing their back catalog. Helvet asked, do you ever wanted to make something which can inspire many to make music like? Well, I hope Rauta keeps inspiring people. Not with, my musical tips so much, but I hope that I can be helpful with my critique about the music and pointing out, flaws and all that stuff. I hope that my very strong anti religious takes can inspire people to make more anti religious music. Robocock was asking, mind you, please tag Rauta Metal if you want to make sure that your comments are answered first. Robocock was asking, if you only pick one subgenres of black metal between atmospheric black metal, melodic black metal, pagan black metal, symphonic black metal, which one you pick and why? I would pick raw black metal because that's where Darkthrone and some other really cool ones come out. Urgehal, Nehema, early Graveland. I think the raw black metal, the kind of a primitive, simple and barbaric style is something that speaks to me most. Because in a way, it's the most away from normal music. Melodic black metal, yeah, I do like it sometimes when the melodies are really good. Pagan stuff, no, not that much. Symphonic black metal, nah. So definitely something raw and fierce. That would be the stuff I would really ride with. Black Widow asks a really nice question, not hard, but nice question. Which band do you think has the most perfect discography? Couple of bands come to my mind right away, and let's assume that the band has to have at least something like 3 albums, maybe 5, to consider it a strong discography. I would say Death and Ball Thrower. Both are, in my opinion, quite flawless, meaning I have all the studio albums because I like them so much. There are lots of favorite bands like Darkthrone, which I only like for 1/3. Paradise Lost, maybe half of the albums are something that I want to keep. But with Death and Ball Thrower, yeah, they are like flawless, in my opinion. And there are not too many bands I would like to have all the albums, studio albums, that is. Ivan Uz is asking, what are the best new albums you heard this year? I won't be talking about the new albums just yet. We'll have to wait for the end of the year for my top 10 list. Then there's a question by Crow Cathedral. Have you heard about the Belarusian black metal singer sentenced to prison time in Belarus? No, I haven't. Favorite song on the Demysteries Dom Satanas? Now that's a real hard question because I still don't know if I have a favorite song on the Demysteries Dom Satanas. I mean, Buried in Time and Dust or Funeral Folk, Freezing Moon, just so many. I mean, all the songs are near perfect on that album. So that's kind of impossible for me. It's almost like pick your favorite child. Okay, first beer almost done, but let's add a little bit more into the mix in the glass. Going back to the previous questions in the backlog. So previously I was answering the Inspire question. Any news from Watain? No. And then there was a Ragnarok mentioning, I hope your family is doing well. We all send our blessings. Thank you. Family is doing fine. Ivan is mentioning Canada is dropping the best black metal the last years. Canada has been really, becoming better and more important when it comes to creating good black metal. I agree. Zachary, hello from Vanta. Not black metal, but what your opinions of Sentenced and Amorphist? Well, I did my Sentenced discography or retrospective a few years ago. I would say early Sentenced is pretty good, especially Amok album. But after that, Sentenced became too much of this kind of a gothic suicidal thing, which wasn't really my cup of tea. And Amorphis, I think most likely the best Amorphis album is the debut. Tales is a little bit mixed bag of goodies. There's some really good stuff, and then there are parts which I don't like, which is why I don't even have the CD anymore. But during my formative years, in my teens and all that stuff, Amorphis was a very important band. That is, until they started becoming more lighter, less death metallic. So I think after Tales they did this, was it Black Winter Day MCD? That one I liked, but after that, was it Elegy or something? It became too light for my taste. I mean, respect to the band becoming bigger and successful and all that stuff, but yeah, not my thing. So it's great that they have been successful. They are one of the pioneer bands from Finland anyway. But I wish Amorphis and Sentenced kept making more death metal rather than becoming something else. Okay, I'm catching up with the hello Jarolamp with the backlog. I'm almost done here, so I get to mention some other things than just answering the questions. Um, uh, can't fucking really read. Brunos was mentioning, I'm surprised so many BM fans like Death considering the later albums quite flashy and polished. Yes, Death was always quite polished, But I think that's part of the charm. And of course, there are bands in black metal too, which are very polished. You know, things like Dimmu Borgir, for instance, or Dark Funeral. So in a way, I wouldn't even compare like this later era progressive, somewhat technical death metal, what Death did, with anything related to black metal, because they're almost like, why would you compare Iron Maiden to Dark Throne kind of a thing? You know, one is supposed to be nice, clean, very polished, and all that stuff, and one is supposed to be dirty, rusty, gritty, grim, cavernous. So they're like two different things. It's almost like health food versus just junk food. Both have their places and their meanings, and comparing them to one another makes very little sense. But Death has always been one of my favorite bands whenever I heard it back in the 90s. Black Widow was asking, can I make some black metal voice tutorials? I don't think so. It would sound too cheesy. I'm no music teacher, and I also like feel like then I would be putting myself on a fucking pedestal to give black metal tutorials how to do vocals. Um, no, it doesn't feel something that I would be comfortable with. Have I heard about the Wallachian failure and do I have an opinion? Well, I have heard that a few people, including some really trustworthy insiders, have claimed that the Wallachian Gates festival failure was created as a scam from the get go. Now, obviously, I cannot back it up. There are no proof. There are no sources which can really show this one, because why would there be? But yeah, quite a few people have been saying that it was kind of a fraud from the beginning. But hard to say for sure. Everything at least points to that direction. What is the worst band I ever saw? Hard to say for sure because I've seen so many bands back in the days. I mean, already in the 90s, and there were some really horrible bands that, always felt like traumatized by a lot of bullshit level crap. So I can't really say for sure. I gotta say, basically, never the bigger bands failed me. They're always so pro. So it must have been some of those more like demo level things which were just next to embarrassing. But unfortunately, I can't really give a name because I don't remember what would be the worst one. I do remember, however, that there was this Finnish band. I just can't get it in my head. This was about 15 years ago, maybe 2009, 2010, roughly that era. I was seeing this show in Helsinki. Don't really remember what it was. Was it Tuska Festival or something? And this was fairly known band in the underground, not really the like one album band or something like that. And they were so utterly boring, especially compared to that they were like experienced band. That was one of the biggest disappointments for years. Like how these guys can sound so boring and shitty and all that stuff. Why would I be seeing these bands versus I could just go out and talk to my friends over beer? But I don't remember what the fuck was the name of the band. It's in the back of my head. I would probably figure it out if I wanted to go Metal Archive site looking for these names of this band. It was like kind of like this ex black metal band gone into something softer, gothic, whatever. But I cannot remember the name right now. Avenues was also commenting, aren't we too old to listen to this kind of music? That's what I ask sometimes from people I interview. But I don't think it's relevant to age. I think it's relevant to mindset. I mean, there are people who in their 20s or teenager years, they listen to, yeah, I'm gonna listening to this badass stuff, rebelling against the parents, the school, the police, blah. And then they find a girlfriend, cut their hair, go to college, stop hating the police and the parents, and they're like, man, I was so wrong. That kind of music doesn't really have a place in my life anymore. I just listen to Taylor Swift nowadays. Why the fuck I would listen to Morbid Angel? So, yeah, I don't think it's relevant to age. It's more about the mindset. Whether you are true, I don't know, rebel or outlaw mentality and all that stuff. So, I think that's more relevant to it. Do I have a favorite? And what's the word? Mixed music fest. What's that? I'm not sure if I follow you, Valentine. What do you mean? What is mixed music fest? You mean like various styles versus being metal? Oh, hello, Bendover. Welcome to the stream. Nice nickname, Ben Dover. Bend over. I like it. Yeah, Biglas. Oh, is it Bigas? Yeah, I heard about this guy. Like you mentioned, that not straight up scammer, but insanely stupid. And I heard that attending Steelfest with Valakian Gates money. I heard about it. Yeah. Zachary, what about Vermilia? What do you want to know about it? Phil was asking, have I enjoyed Hellbutcher's solo band? Do I find it polished? Not too polished. I actually saw them play at Steelfest and I liked their show. And I also interviewed Hellbutcher last year in Norway. So you should definitely check out my Hellbutcher interview. I think it's good stuff. In a way, it's better than Niflheim. Yeah, because that plan sounds so fucking stupid. Doing another gig where you get free beers and apology. That sounds like fucking stupid. Yeah, I don't find it weird if there's 60-year-olds listening to rap. I mean, there are some really good rap music, and that's especially if we're talking about the old school hip hop stuff. There is some badass attitude. I don't find it weird. Oh, Black Widow, you mean like Hellfest? I don't mind if, music fests are mixed in various styles. Um, because there are so many generic metal festivals which can be really good, but I don't have a favorite one. All right, Even, catch you later. Hello, Åland. Bend over from Åland. That's great. Åland is a nice place. I want to go back there. And Nightside is supposed to be play a gig in Åland next year. Yeah, Black Widow. I think those kind of metal festivals are good because, of course, my music taste goes way beyond black metal, death metal, thrash metal. So I don't mind generic metal fests. Because I wouldn't mind seeing heavy metal. I wouldn't mind seeing, classic hard rock. In a way, Beyond the Gates is like that. Because, for example, this year some of the headliners were doom metal, like Electric Wizard and Warning. Then again, there was of course black metal and death metal. So it's combining these different genres. It's not purely black metal festival. Even Steelfest isn't purely black metal festival. There's always a little bit death metal and thrash and something like that. And I think that's how it should be. Yeah, Phil, don't worry if you missed some of the interviews. There are so many interviews these days, it's easy to miss some of them. Yeah, because that's very true about the Valakian Gates guys. I mean, he should be definitely paying the money back to people who are buying the tickets. Just saying that they will be, you know, for next year as well. There's a lot of people who don't buy that bullshit. So once you kind of lose your trust, people lose their trust in whoever the promoter is. That's the end of it. Now, ladies and gentlemen, Rauta needs another beer. So mind you, we're 1 hour in. Another beer. Be right back. Seems like we're having another porter. If this previous one was Dark Lab Works, now it's time for Chimney Trek. The name of the chimney, when you're having a fireplace like just one behind my back, you need a chimney, which means a very smoky thing. So this is smoked Baltic Porter 7.4. No, my mind is doing the tricks. 7.0. So, nice, strong beer. What else? Oh, sorry, I pushed off the wrong light. Let's do it this way. Edwin is making an interesting question. What is the difference between ambient black metal and atmospheric black metal? Sometimes they're exactly the same thing, but if you wanted to go nitpicking about the genre definitions, which I totally disagree with, don't go nitpicking about genre. Sometimes it's just better to describe them as black metal. But if you wanted my opinion about what is ambient black metal and what is atmospheric black metal. Now, atmospheric black metal tends to be more guitar driven. Think about like the Burzum, overly lengthy songs where the guitar kind of creates the flow, sometimes with melodies and sometimes with dronier part, where ambient is literally where you have things like dark ambient, so something like dark space, creating this layer more or less electronic in a way, but of course can be achieved by other ways too, like using some kind of a pedal system where you get the kind of a droney effect. But I think Dark Space is a very good example of ambient black metal. So you have this ambient layer. I would also say Limbonic Art is in a way this kind of ambient black metal. So you have these high tempo riffs and drums, which definitely doesn't sound like atmospheric black metal because it's not really soothing but aggressive, and yet at the same time not being symphonic. So you create these layers of ambience, say much like dark ambient, and you let that dominate in a way the background, maybe even replace things like bass guitar. And that's when you have the ambience and then you black metal on it in a way. Whereas atmospheric is definitely most parts, in my opinion, more guitar driven. But like I said, I'm not really into nitpicking these genres. There's so many people who go like, is it this, that? Is it the technical death metal? Is it progressive death metal? Who gives a shit? I mean, it's death metal. Maybe there is a technical twist to it. Maybe this has like a little bit of progressive rock as seasoning, but I wouldn't really let that define music too much. Um, Thank you for your words, Ragnarok. Here is to you, dear audience. Oh, gotta put down. All right. Hello, and welcome to the string, Motsloth. Um, there's a funny thing. Do I know band Manowar? Might have heard about it. Oh, that's nice. Oktoberfest beers. Crow Cathedral. Why are Finns so cool? Like literally, because we live in a cold country, so of course we're cool. Um, we gave the world Linux. Well, that's thanks to one man, but I don't know if Finns are cool. We try to be modest. We're not, arrogant, and we try to respect people with whatever they are. That's all I can. Well, the actual answer is we have most metal bands in the world. We drink most coffee in the world per capita, and we have most saunas. So that's why we are so cool. Zachary, that was fucking cool, man. Seeing Manowar 1984. That's fucking awesome. Respect to your brother. All right, couple of questions which people sent. These are something that I mentioned earlier on in the stream. A couple of people were talking about this. Like I mentioned, I wanted to put a list of questions for this stream, but I kind of forgot to do it. I tried to get better with the next stream in September. But first, question number one. I'm gonna quote it literally. I have a question out of curiosity. Do you know anyone involved in underground black metal that you would not know is a metalhead, as far as dressing, unassuming, no long hair, etc.? Yes, there are people who do not look like at all like metalheads. In fact, I encountered one of such person, an acquaintance of mine in Norway. He totally looks like a normal office working dude, like nice, short, clean cut hair, glasses, and all that stuff. You could really think like he's some kind of guy working for the Federal Bureau of Investigation or whatever office worker at Microsoft. My point here is nothing really makes him look like a metalhead. I don't know how many band shirts this guy might have, but just, assume like normal jeans, normal boots, shoes, whatever, no band shirt, and the hair, glasses, everything. And of course, you would never know that this guy has his own black metal band and as such is part of the scene. Why there are such people? Well, various reasons. First of all, not everybody wants to make them look like metalheads, especially at work. They don't wear band shirts. Even I'm not wearing a band shirt at the moment. I'm wearing a video game shirt of one of my favorite video game franchise. Though about maybe 90 to 95% of my shirts are. What the fuck? I have pubic hair in my mouth. Just joking. I don't know what it is. Probably from the dogs. So what I'm saying is, even though I have about 90%, 95% of my shirts, being a metal band shirt, if I wanted to, I could have a button shirt for work, to hide my tattoos, nothing to show really. I'm a metalhead, this kind of haircut doesn't really make anybody a metalhead. I don't have any piercings anymore. Nothing really would indicate me as a metalhead, right? So some people do that for work or for other reason. Some people don't even want to have long hair. Maybe don't even care about band shirt unless it's special event. So there are probably a lot more than those that I can think out of my head. But just because I met one of these people in Bergen at Beyond the Gates, yeah, I know such people, of course. So now it's not that uncommon, really. Any thoughts about Mortal Shell? No, not yet anyway. Yeah, that is very true because, and I don't find a problem there. I don't judge people in metal based on their haircut. Of course, when I was younger and naive, I kind of had this idea or dream in a way that all metalheads would be kind of united. Having long hair, leather jackets, and whatever. But as you grow older, you realize this is not for everybody. And I don't want to judge a book by its cover. And what I mean is, I don't expect to know anything about a person at all based on what he or she wears. There might be this coolest metal chick in the whole fucking city without seemingly being that. I think a lot of people kind of want to pose, like have lots of piercings and patches, like battle vest, battle jacket kind of a thing, to really, underline the fact that, hey, I'm part of Metalhead community. But, those who kind of make it so, how to say, highlighting, highlighted, sometimes that is almost me like, okay, what are you trying to prove? Just because you have 20 or 30 patches around your battle vest or battle jacket or whatever it is, and just because you have your purse or man bag with other pins and patches as well, doesn't make you a more metalhead. I would say the most metalhead people are those who support the community one way or another, and this can be having your own band, being a photographer of the metal community, being a writer about metal community, like reviews, geek reports, so on, or being just a hardcore fan who buys band merchandise and, more importantly, listens to music, buys maybe CDs, vinyl, tapes. I mean, I don't give a shit how many patches you have if you don't really have some kind of a music collection. And now I don't even mean you have to have it physical. What I really mean is when you meet a fellow metalhead and you can start a conversation about bands and know that these people know a lot, that they've seen a lot of gigs and they've listened to a lot of albums. That's what I consider real metalhead. So to me, it's not really convincing how many metal tattoos you have, how many badges you have, how many trinkets and pins and all that you have. But if your music collection is big, if it has a lot of cool music in it, and if you know a lot about bands and you've seen a lot of gigs, then you are probably my kind of person to begin with. So that matters way much more than whether you have cool long hair or whether you have this or that as clothing. But of course, I do have a soft spot when I see someone who is like, I don't know, wearing a cool shirt, especially if it's something that I like. If I see a person having a Morbid Angel shirt or something more regular kind of metal, I think that person is very cool. That is interesting. Slayer shirt might do the same trick, or some obscure Black Death thrash metal thing. If I would see someone wearing a Violence shirt rather than a Mayhem shirt, I might think this person having a Violence shirt would be probably more interesting. It's not so because I consider better Violence a better band than Mayhem, but that would kind of indicate that this person probably knows more and is more devoted to the underground metal than someone having a metal shirt, which you can buy almost like, Hennes and Mauritz kind of thing. So what I'm saying is, you know, having this genuine old school feeling, if I get that feeling from a person, it probably means more to me than someone who is just having some trendier shirt. But that doesn't mean that I am judging people if they wear, say, Cradle of Filth or Behemoth or Amon Amarth or whatever, because they are cool bands too. And once upon a time, they were small bands. So I don't judge people. I like Rammstein a lot. I like old school Metallica a lot. So sometimes I wear, old school Metallica shirt with pride. Why? So because that's the stuff I grew up with. So I'm not judging bands by their size, nor the fans based on what kind of a size of band they're wearing. If someone really loves Cradle of Filth, for instance, and is wearing a Cradle of Filth shirt, why would that bother me? Nope, it wouldn't. And it could be, something more mainstream. And if someone is wearing, say, an Iron Maiden shirt, that's cool in my books. I don't care if they are successful or not. But if I see that person is probably cool. So what I'm saying here is the dedication to metal music. That is much more than wearing some kind of a, I don't know, try hard thing all over your place. I don't know if it makes sense, but to me it does. Yeah, because that's what I also mean. You're on the same page, like you said. The ones that you never expect to be metalheads are usually the metal people, the most metal people. Yeah, you don't have to underline the fact that you are diehard metal people. I know a lot of people. I'll give you a good example. One of my good friends who have been singing in metal bands since early 90s or late 80s. There was a point when he was wearing mostly just white Boss shirts. Boss as the brand. You wouldn't figure out he was a metalhead. He had long time ago shaved his hair, so he was yet another bald guy wearing a normal white shirt. Nothing would, make him look like he was a fucking diehard metal dude. He wouldn't, show it to out in the world. And this is a guy who has, for example, old thrash metal band logos as tattoos in his body. Because he's kind of a crazy guy. He knows a lot about stuff. He's been writing about metal. He has been singing in various bands. But he doesn't have to underline, I'm a fucking metalhead. I don't mind when people do that, but I mean, it doesn't really define a person. Yeah, Phil, I remember that thing with Kardashians. But then again, I also think if someone like Kardashian would wear a Morbid Angel shirt, in a way it would be fucking cool. Because Kardashians give a lot of visibility. I don't care if Kardashian never heard, Altars of Madness or, Where Does Slime Live. But in a way, it gives more power to Morbid Angel as well. So I don't really give a fuck. This goes both ways. If some people buy those shirts to be the trendy stuff and invoke these, hey, name 3 songs by this band. Hey, it happens. I don't care. But if Kardashian would wear a fucking Burzum shirt or Morbid Angel shirt or, I don't know, something shady, some sketchy band, all the better in a way. I don't mind it. It doesn't take anything away from Morbid Angel being Morbid Angel. It's not their fault if Kardashian decides to be a poser. And who knows? Maybe Kardashian is doing fucking coke and ketamine and listening to Formula's Fatal to the Flesh when she's partying out. Who knows? We don't know what the fuck they are doing. having, skiing with two dicks. Ah, this is so great. Come all over me while I'm listening to Covenant. You know, who knows? Maybe they have the craziest death metal parties at their fucking multi-million-dollar houses. Who knows? Wouldn't you like to party with the Kardashians listening to Morbid Angel and smoking some quality weed with them and, who knows, coming all over their naked bodies? Just let that sink in for a bit. This is a good question by Jakubs. Ride the Lightning or Master of Puppets? When I was younger, puppets all day, but I think Ride is the better front, whatever, blah blah blah. Oh yeah, well, when I was younger, I would really listen to a lot of metal because I didn't have CDs back in the days. I had a handful of tapes, and those handful of tapes were done with, filled with Metallica. So, of course, there were other bands too, but Metallica was really taking most of my time. I really didn't have many tapes as a young teenager. So, I would be listening to Metallica back in day, back and forth, and I don't remember which was my favorite Metallica at the time. That time I also liked, Black Album a lot too. I still think it's a good album, but now I don't even own it on CD. Maybe it just kind of got a little bit boring over the years. But, Ride the Lightning and Master of Puppets were always like, you know, having a similar competition, like you mentioned, like which is the better. At some point, I was thinking Master of Puppets is the best Metallica because there are a couple of songs on Ride the Lightning which I'm not really fan of. Trapped Under Ice and what the fuck the other one? I should remember it right out of the bat. Anyway, Escape, yeah. So Master of Puppets is, in my opinion, better balanced. Like there are no, I wouldn't say those songs are weak, but like it's more consistent. It's like there are no weak moments. It's all peak in a way. But then again, maybe Ride the Lightning has even better peak songs than Master of Puppets. Like, for example, the title track, obviously, or for Who the Bell Tolls, fucking supreme. And, some other songs like, how the fuck, I'm probably getting an early dementia here. I'm sometimes forgetting names I should remember right out of the bat. Creeping Death. Thank you, my brain. So, I mean, those songs are the kind of thrash classics which are so defining how good Metallica is. Like, love James Hetfield vocals. He's so good as a vocalist and his voice is flawless. One of the best voices in metal all time. But Master Puppets, I mean, it's better on average level. That's what I'm trying to say here. So I still haven't decided after, I don't know, 35 years of listening to Metallica. I still don't know which is my favorite album. But I would probably lie it's Master of Puppets because of the reasons I just mentioned. And of course, having songs like Orion. I mean, how on earth you have that good of a instrumental thrash metal song? What the fuck? That's such crazy level stuff. And songs like, Disposable Heroes, Battery, and of course the Master of Puppets itself. I mean, it's just crazy. Sometimes I feel Metallica is underrated band in underground extreme metal scene. I mean, can't say Metallica is underrated band because it's the biggest metal band ever. But when it comes to underground metal fans, you rarely hear black metal guys praising how good Metallica is. Now, what has been very interesting when I've been doing these interviews, I remember, for instance, when I was talking to Dimmu Borgir guy, Zelenos, a couple of years ago when I was doing the interview, and I was asking for they like what were they inspired by, what kind of bands they were listening to as teenagers, I was so inspired and also interested and wow, surprised when he mentioned Metallica as one of the bands. Because for my generation in Finland, Metallica was the kind of a go-to. That or Iron Maiden. Iron Maiden was, for me, for example, the first metal band I ever heard at the age of 7 or 8, whatever it was. But Metallica was the real, well, like my first true love in a way. It was the kind of a band that stole my heart, if I would go to romantic metaphor here. And, I cannot underline too much how important band Metallica was in my teenager years, way before I found about death metal, thrash metal, black metal, and all that stuff. So, indeed, the formative years. And I still think the early Metallica albums are fucking golden. Slayer might be my all-time thrash metal favorite, but Metallica has definitely a special place. And for a lot of reasons. Not only the music is really good and the vocals are top-notch, and the production is very solid, but also, Metallica is one of the bands which have really good lyrics too. There are countless examples of that. That could be about Ride the Lightning, or we could talk about One. We could talk about Disposable Heroes and all that stuff. So a lot of these, or For Whom the Bell Tolls. So a lot of these really dark topics, war, suicide, death penalty, stuff like that. It's just so great what people can do when they know what to write about, that they can write well. Slayer is another good band which has a lot of great lyrics, but unfortunately, black metal so often is filled with mediocrity. As much as I like black metal as a genre and all music, how I spend so much time with black metal and death metal, but sometimes I feel like if I have to listen to some cool lyrics, I kind of have to go to thrash metal, assuming we're still in the context of metal. So Metallica definitely is so great a band that I could fucking talk about for hours how great Metallica is. Sometimes I think I don't even listen to enough Metallica these days because I was listening to so much of that when I was a teenager, and nowadays I'm drowned in review copies, which are most often some obscure black metal, death metal bands I spend so much time with. But what I'm trying to say here, never forget your roots. Whatever got you into metal, it could be Judas Priest or Iron Maiden or Black Sabbath, or for a newer generation, it could be something like Burzum Mayhem, Dissection, Marduk, whatever. Even bands like Mqua nowadays get people into metal. Like, oh, I started listening to black metal by listening to Mqua's Age of Excuse or whatever. No, not that album exists. But you get the idea. So, yeah, what I'm saying here is different people from different generation get, into different kind of albums. And of course, someone who is like born in 2000, I don't know, 5, would be 21 years old, is finding different albums than my generation. I was born in 1975. So, it's obviously different what I grew up with. So different albums for different people and all that stuff. So, yeah, long answer. Black Widow. I can say 3 songs on some band. My brain will freeze in a second, even if I saw them live 10 times. Black Widow. I'm on the same page with you. There are lots of especially newer bands, and newer bands, I say, bands that I've heard like 25 years now, which I cannot name songs. Like Destroyer 666 is one of my the favorite band from Australia. Can I name 3 songs by Destroyer 666? Even though I've listened to them since the first EP, Violence is the Prince of this World. No fucking way. I don't remember what kind of song names they have. I might remember a song or two here and there, but I usually think about just, album names. I'm like, oh yeah, Defiance is my favorite. Oh, but then again, Violence have some really good aggressive black thrash stuff. Or, stuff like that. Cold Steel is so great and all that stuff. And if people would be, hey, so you like Mqua, why don't you name 3 best Mqua tracks? I have no idea what they are. I don't remember the track names. Sometimes, and this I learned back in 1993. There's a real example of this. Now, Paradise Lost and me, our journey started in 1993, fall. I had just started this commercial school in a different city. I was 18 years of age. Um, and I had moved out of my home to this new small town where the school was. Um, I was a metalhead already. I had my stereo system. I was buying my first CDs. For some reason, I got the impression I might like Paradise Lost, so I bought this album Icon, and I would spin it a lot. So at some point, I started remembering the tracks I liked the most by the numbers in my CD player. I would have the LCD, screen here. Okay, now it's song number 1 is very good. So is number 2. 3 is great. 4 not so much. So we go straight on to 5 and 6. And then probably something like 8 and 9, maybe 10 to 11. So to remember a lot of these numbers. And then people would be, so what is the number 2 called? I don't have any idea. I think the number 1 is Ember's Fire. So that is the great. Widow was maybe number 5, but I'm not sure really. And if I would go about later Paradise Lost songs, there are lots of songs which I don't remember, even if I love the songs. There's some which I do remember from later albums, like Redshift, a really great song. But my brain doesn't really remember the names as well, unless I've been actually reading the lyrics and going through the stuff during the formative years. Like I probably could list lots of Slayer songs or Bathory songs, but there are lots of songs which I have no clue what they are, in names. When I hear the song, I'm like, oh, this is a great song from the Destroyer 666 album, or this song by Satyricon is so great. But most of the time, I'm like, I don't remember. Like I was listening to Satyricon's Nemesis Divina just the other day, and I couldn't remember a single track by name except Nemesis Divina's most known song, Mother North. And I was like, this is crazy because I've owned the album for almost around 30 years now. I don't remember when Nemesis Divina came out, but 95, 96, something like that. So my point here is there are lots of albums I don't remember the names. I just remember roughly, okay, number 3 is so great. That's, by the way, Mother North. But, it's so crazy. Or Shadow Throne, probably the best Satyricon album. Do I remember a single name of that album? No fucking way. Then again, I do remember lots of Dark Throne song names. What's up with that? They are from the same era. Or Burzum tracks. It's so crazy. So yeah, I'm on the same page. If someone would come to me seeing me with for example, a Destroyer 666 shirt on. Hey, name 3 songs. I'm like, fuck, I don't know any of the song names. I have all the albums except Wildfire. And I've been listening to them since the first EP. This was around 97 or whatever when I started listening to it. Because I remember my friend ordered a copy of Unchained the Wolves for me as well when he was ordering for himself. And that was a new album back in the days. So, yeah, we really go so much back in time. But I still don't remember the song names. So that's so crazy. And I'm not even ashamed of that. But, yeah. So much like Black Widow mentioned. I can name the albums, though, because listening to full albums. Yeah, Phil, opening fire with fire, ding 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 ding, ending is near. Yeah, so good stuff. About Scumchrist mentioning the poser thing. Yeah, I think the word poser is a little bit stupid, and better word would be to try hard. There was at least some discussion back in the days which one is worse, being a poser or wannabe. Poser kind of tried to emulate, being someone who is not. So, not genuine. In a way that worse. Wannabe is something who wants to be something so badly, but is there, not yet there. Imagine someone who is wanting to, grow long hair. You have the kind of a pot hair, the pot cut, that is kind of like a try hard. You want to be this guy. You are this wannabe. You want to have your long hair, but it's only this long after you shaved your head. In a way, that's at least you're going for something. For example, if you go to the gym, maybe you're a weak guy or girl, you just started, but you want to be strong, so you're kind of a wannabe. But that's way better than posing like someone who puts synth oil to their muscles to look big, but in essence, they don't have the muscle. So I would say poser is worse than try hard or wannabe. But, you know, those are just, dismiss people. You don't really have to worry about them. In my interview with the Sven David guys, Nergal of Behemoth and DG from Miss Turming, Nergal made a good point about the word pose. I mean, what does it even mean? It's posing. We're like, hey, strike a pose. That's not so bad, but it's the actual word we should be focusing is pretending. That's what essentially poser means a pretender. Someone tries to pretend to be something he or she is not. And yeah, I wouldn't call it it's crime, but I mean, when you are pretending something you are not, then you are essentially a fake. And I don't think a lot of people like fake people. So be what you are, be proud of it if you can, but just be what you are because you cannot be something else, a very simple thing. Rauta sharing some wisdom in life. All right, let's move on with more comments. Yeah, Jakubs, it doesn't matter if it's MP3s or tapes. Same difference, really. Yeah, Phil, definitely. When you're that young, like you mentioned, 90-year-old, when you heard Metallica, of course, it was like a blown away kind of a thing. Yeah, Scum Christ has definitely a good point. What if you listen to some Russian bands, which are then Cyrillic letters? How are you supposed to name? Yeah, hey, name three favorite old wines songs. I don't know. I don't speak Russian. How I am supposed to name these songs when I don't know what the fuck are talking about? They are not in English. So fuck off and die. Yeah, Delinquent has a good point. Horna, for example, having always, Finnish song names. It would be quite unfair. Hey, name three best Horna songs. And then like, Kohti Udexanosua? What the fuck? I mean, it's unfair. It's totally unfair. Yeah, yeah, Delicon. Yeah, that's a good point about poser versus poser. So, yeah. That's why the word pretending means better. Yeah, yeah, Goops, you have a point. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And Delicon, I get you what you mean. Yes, yes. Yeah, that's why the word pretender is definitely better than poser. Okay, now I had this question, second question, which I also people were asking. This was, have you heard anything about Watain album recording process? Nope. And any news at all album wise for Darkened Nocturnal Slaughter Call? Thank you. No. Very boring answers to very simplistic questions. I should probably have all these questions listed and right from the beginning of the stream, but hey, my mind works weird ways. Oh, what happened to Abba? There is no official information about it, so I don't want to speculate. But it seems so weird because he got on stage without the, corpse paint and all, and the show was over so quickly. But previously, there has been problems with Abba's, alcohol use and drug abuse. So we can only speculate what it was. But no official wording has come out of yet, so we don't know. Yes, about the Idimu and Azazel. Well, the thing is, Idimu, the ex Azazel drummer, was grooming a teenager a couple of years ago, it seems. And when this was found out, resurfacing, the drummer was kicked out of the band more or less immediately. So that's the story. Yeah, delinquent, that's a really good point. Hello, Tia, how are you? Now, Azazel will survive without Idimu on drums. Won't be a big deal. First of all, honestly, I've known the guy since late 90s, maybe early 2000s, probably late 90s, so almost 30 years ago, 25 plus anyway. And to be honest, he has never been very good drummer. So I think he will be very easy to replace in Azazel. But of course, the downside is he was a kind of a core member right after Satanakia in terms of handling Azazel stuff. So, for example, it seems like this is the reason why Azazel Facebook page got taken down because the drummer was taking care of that stuff. He probably knew the most about it, and when he was getting caught for being grooming this teenager, and the band was getting shit for that. I think he wanted to take down the site so he would kind of protect himself. So kind of a nasty favor to the band, but that's how it is, and the band should be more careful than not just let one person take care of that kind of stuff. Yeah, I'm sure that Azazel will do just fine in the future as well. Though we have to remember that not too many months ago, Azazel kind of announced that they would have this 3 years plan, that they would do one more album, then a few shows, and then call it quits. That was sounding ridiculous from the beginning, but bands are what they are. Seemed like they wanted to have similar thing than what time with their plan. I do not know why. Yeah, Crow. I think Abad is a great guy. Brings some nice humor to music. Does good live too. But unfortunately, it seems Ulve or Abad has problem with substance. Anyways, guys, are we gonna wrap things up, or is there something I can mention? Yeah, I can mention one thing. So you are probably some of the first people to know about it. I recently started. Um, hold on. I recently started this website, a blog of sorts, if you will. And this is still in beta phase, but I will link it to you. I would urge you to check out, and if you like the reviews, what I'm doing right there, please subscribe. Um, this is extension to Rauta, meaning that outside videos I will try to add more written content as well. They are and will be overlapping with the video content, and I understand that not everybody wants to see videos for reviews or even interviews. So I'm trying to expand this Rauta thing into a blog where you would eventually later on find some written interviews as well. However, to support a whole Rauta thing going on and not to just, cannibalize my own stuff, I will be putting those interviews behind a paywall. But this is just one alternative to check out the stuff. Reviews I will keep for free, but interviews I will put behind a paywall. So in case you're not so much into checking out the stuff, from videos, you could use this as alternative source. It doesn't have many features out. Only something like 17 posts. I've been doing this basically once a day. I might be picking up the pace at some point. I'm just kind of getting the hang of um, creating content on daily basis. And they are translated versions of Finnish reviews I've written, but there will be difference. For example, I will write about movies and TV shows as well, in addition to the musical releases. This is what because I love good TV, good video games, good movies, and I don't really have a platform anymore to write about, music. I mean, sorry, not music, but TV, video games, and movies. So I'm trying to put everything right here. So this is to support or expand the whole Rauta thing in a little bit bigger scale. I do not know what else I will eventually put there, but the point here is now to create a platform in a blog way for written content. So interviews, reviews, and might be sometimes something else as well. We'll see how it goes. So thank you for that. If you will check out the blog, I will be advertising it later on a little bit more. Now it's still in a beta phase or all that stuff. And Jay Killers, yes, there will be a game stream right after this stream. So I'm not going to bed yet, but I will soon call it a day for this stream, and then I will be gonna continuing the Assassin's Creed Black Flag Resync stream as well. And this is another thing which I actually wanted to talk about. Now a lot of people know that Rauta's weekly game streams are on. Doesn't matter if you're a gamer or not. You can still join the game streams for random metal chats. I would say that we talk more about metal music on those streams while I game rather than the game itself. But of course, There are no limited topics. So much like these monthly streams here, these game streams are always up for, normal conversation, normal questions and answers while I game. So feel free to try them out as well. Of course, we will be talking about gaming as well. So in case you're a fellow gamer, maybe it makes more sense. But no need to be shy that, okay, I'm not interested in video gaming and why would I bother joining a video game stream? Just consider them like normal Rauta stream, but with a video game on the background. What else? Oh yeah, I promised you to tell about a little bit more about the interviews I'm doing. And hold on, I'm opening this list. So far, 2 interviews have been coming out from Beyond the Gates. There was Wendevit featuring Nergal of Behemoth and DG from Miss Turming. Yesterday, Malignant Eternal slash Turgrim Ure interview came out. Turgrim is, well, part of Malignant Eternal back in the days when it was active. Also did some vocals on Gorgoroth and some bass work on Obtain Enslavement. So man of many talents when it comes to Norwegian black metal scene. Also used to be booking manager for Hole in the Sky Festival in Norway, and now he's the festival manager of Beyond the Gates. So man of many talents, and he also has his own band agency. So taking care of bands like Dimmu Borgir, for instance. He was actually putting Rauta and Dimmu Borgir together a couple of years ago when I was asking for an interview. So he has been helping out me with interviews as well as, things related to Beyond the Gates. So it was my pleasure to interview this guy about the festival and other stuff as well. And that came out yesterday. So I think it's pretty interesting interview in that sense, talking about man of many talents in the Norwegian black metal scene. Now, next week I should be getting out Down with the Most High label. Daniel of that label is going to talk about some very unique, very rare kind of band merchandise. It's not your typical shirts, patches, pins, but something crazy as a full metal Emperor shield, the Emperor design. Also, there's a Marduk sculpture, fuck me Jesus kind of a thing. There's a Celtic Frost wall sculpture and some great quality back patches. Not to mention Emperor rings and other jewelry to go with. And those will be presented in the interview, which we did at Beyond the Gates. So it's not a bad interview, but something totally different. I strongly recommend you to check it out because it's quite interesting for its different angle into the world of metal merchandise and label work. Then we have later on coming Terrestrial Hospice Part 2. It's a sequel to the first one in 2023. And now there are different topics, obviously, because the band is now playing live as opposed to the first interview time when it wasn't. And of course, there's new music coming out. Then there is Dead to This World / Wurdulak guy Stian, who also played in Immortal and Necrophagia back in the days. A man of many roles, also having a record label. I got to interview him at Beyond the Gates, so we will talk about the stuff in Immortal, Dead to This World, Wurdulak, Necrophagia, and running a label back in the days. Interesting character for sure. Nice guy. Has been supporting Rauta as well to review CDs and all that stuff. So that was an interesting chat for sure, especially when bands like Necrophagia are not really available for interviews anymore. Then there is 1349 with Raven. I guess 1349 is one of the bigger Norwegian black metal bands of these days, so it will be interesting for those who are fans of the band. Then Gal for Gal's Word and Thraldom and ex Gorgoroth, obviously. Finally was able to land interview with Gal. That is, in my opinion, one of the highlights for me this year in from Beyond the Gates, because of course Gal is mysterious character, but also a very nice one, man of deep thoughts, and kind of a different angle than many other guys. So really happy that we got it out. And then there is Alcest Neige, talking about his music and his style changes and all that stuff. Really pleasant guy to talk to. And that is the last one from Beyond the Gates. And finally, last weekend we got to do Mortal Sin, the classic Australian thrash metal band, which is now celebrating 40 years of existence. So old school thrash metal. So I think quite interesting interviews coming from July and August. So yeah, I'm really happy about the catch. Eventually, even though there were some setbacks with Beyond the Gates, there were like 4 interviews which got cancelled on very short notice. And I'm happy that I still got to do these many interviews when it looked quite bleak in the city. And that's pretty much for coming weeks in terms of interviews. Still, we'll be coming out once a week, every Friday, unless something dramatic like someone getting sick happens. So by the time we get those done, we are more or less in October, by which time I hope we are getting more interviews in the pipeline. And as mentioned in the earlier part of the stream today, Rauta team, me and my cameraman, are traveling to Scotland in mid-October. So that's at the very latest when we get more interviews done. There are like 3 or 4 ones already set for that weekend in Glasgow. So hopefully by late October, early November, we should have more black metal interviews rolling out. And if things go as planned, there will be this Helsinki Metal Cruise in mid-November for more end of the year interviews. There are some individual gigs throughout the fall in my home city, which I try to make useful and get more interviews done, like this Mortal Sin. But I do not know when and what exactly. But that will be taken care of once we get that far. Nothing much is happening anyway in the last days of August. But it looks pretty sweet to me in the sense that most weeks of the rest of the year we will have interviews rolling out. And when there are no interviews coming out, then there will be some other content, obviously. That's pretty much of the news part. What else? Can I answer you the final questions before I get my final beer of tonight? Yeah, Tia, that's what I mean, that text blog might be useful for people who don't have time to watch videos. Delinquent, best concert or festival? Well, Steelfest is always the best for me. Not always, but yeah, my favorite festival. So, but best gig so far, I'm not sure yet. I really need to think about it. And there is a festival in 2 weeks where I'm gonna see some interesting ones. But yeah, this year has been interesting. Steelfest was a little bit off for me because I had to drive home too early for a couple of days this year. Wasn't too great in that sense, but yeah, it's been great. Marduk show, for example, at Beyond the Gates was really good. Alcest was better than what I expected it to be because I didn't have too high expectations. I was expecting it to be interesting, but yeah, it was wild good. So Beyond the Gates and Steelfest and Inferno have been the highlights for me in terms of festivals this year. Then there were some really good gigs at Inferno as well. like D-Side, for instance. So yeah, lots of good stuff. Jakub's asking, have I seen Grand Theft Auto 6 leaks? No, I am not gonna watch out unofficial leaks, but I will be checking out next week, if I have the time, the Netflix special about Grand Theft Auto 6. I'm very interested in that since I have already Netflix subscription going on. I might check it out as well. I'm really looking forward to the game. And Call of Duty, I mean, yeah, I played many Call of Duty games, but past few years I haven't really bought any of them. So I don't know when I will be back to it. Maybe when I activate Xbox Game Pass at some point. But Call of Duty games are always fun. I played the series since the first one, but past few years I haven't really been paying attention. There's just too much of that same stuff, and I have a backlog of games which seems to be growing out of proportions. I just this week again I ordered some game on Vinted because I've been selling some shirts on Vinted, so I had a little bit coin there. And then I was reading about Claire Obscure 33 Expedition review, and I was like, oh fuck, I forgot to buy this game. And of course it was on Vinted for a second-hand game, so I went like, fuck it, I'm gonna buy it. And so I have a lot of games to be finishing in my backlog. And thank you, Delinquent, for bookmarking the blog page. I try to add some review, some text every day, but I cannot guarantee because at the moment Fika platform doesn't allow me to schedule posts in the future. So as many as I want to post there already, I can't schedule them, so I have to manually release them. But sometimes I release 2 texts a day, sometimes only 1, depends how busy I am. Delinquent has a good question. What is your favorite interview that you have done this year? It must be this Svendevid thing with Nergal of Behemoth and DG of Miss Turming, because I've been trying to chase down Nergal for a few years now. I know he's an interesting character because I've interviewed him already around 2009 or whatever in Finland, and I wanted to have him on Rauta for so many years, but I haven't been presented this opportunity to get Nergal on the show, even though I noticed at some point that Nergal had shared some spicy Rauta's opinion video about black metal whoring on his own Patreon. So I figured out at least he knows the site, the channel that is, and to a degree likes the content, because otherwise he wouldn't be sharing with some nice words my video about black metal whoring. So I figured out there is a good chance that at some point I might be able to do this interview with him. And then I was already in touch with DG of Miss Turming, and I knew that they would be touring together for this Vanderbilt gig. So I had my high hopes that Nergal would do it, and he did. He was once again a true gentleman, very nice, very pleasant person to talk with, smart, which you can see if you look at the interview. I mean, you don't have to like Behemoth, you don't have to like Nergal, but when you will hear him talking, you will figure out that he's a smart person and he's not some asshat. He can be goofy, much like a Bath can, but then you also know that he knows what he's doing and he knows what he's saying and he's thinking, and he's more old school than a lot of people give him credit for. It's easy to dismiss Behemoth being a boring band because their success and their more approachable, more accessible albums. But what I like in Nergal is that he hasn't abandoned his roots. He still knows where he's coming from. This small band from Poland, which once upon a time wanted to play some black metal. And there's a big respect, in my opinion, for him with that, way he is. So, of course, that was, I guess, the biggest catch of the year. I hate to say it like this, biggest catch, because it feels like I'm trying to catch those bands like they were fish in the sea. But you know what I'm talking about. It's not about me, it's not about the bands, it's for the audience. And getting Nurgle to speak on camera on Rauta, of course, it means a lot to me. But sometimes the smaller artists can be valuable the same way. They're just different. And of course, when bigger cult bands, say Blasphemy, for instance, or Imbel Nazarene for that matter, when I landed those interviews, I was really happy because I knew there are not too many of those interviews happening. And some bands are just outright saying no to video interviews. Imbel Nazarene told me no a couple of times before. So when I finally managed to do them and I see these guys are happy with the result, of course it fucking makes my day. Makes me a happy fucking beaver. So Imbel Nazarene and Behemoth 1, or sorry, Nurgle 1 are the favorite ones for this year. And yeah, Bruno's glad that you marked the blog. I didn't refresh, but I see at least one subscriber so far. So I hope you people will subscribe to the blog. Then you will get updated when there is more text to it. But yeah, it's still in a very early phase of that stuff. Yeah, Delico, and I hope that you get to do Steelfest. It's really that great because there are always lots of interesting bands that don't play elsewhere. So Steelfest definitely has this kind of exclusive thing going on. Not to mention that the atmosphere at Steelfest is great, and it's not as shady as some people claim it to be. Sure, there are always some sketchy people doing the Roman salutes, but apart from that, it's really just a good festival with quite normal people in the end, and with great bands, great atmosphere. Yeah, Deliquid, you're right about Call of Duty games. That's one of the reasons why I don't really enjoy them that much. And because I'm a sucker for open world games, for me, the best shooters are the kind of Far Cry. That's also one of the reasons why I like Ubisoft games so much, because I'm an open world sucker. I like to go to places which look fancy or interesting, like Assassin's Creed, like Far Cry, and so forth. So, if I get to choose my favorite kind of shooter, it would be something like Far Cry. Open world, lots of possibility to explore, and also the possibility to go well, for stealth or straight on action. So machine guns or bows. Either way, one last beer, one last set of questions, and then I will be ending this stream and going for the gaming stream. But be right back, 1 minute. Seems like it's raining outside. Gonna open the door for a bit to let it oxygen filled air inside. And one last beer, maybe the best beer for tonight, is this kind of a Quantum Duetto. They're singing with their fine hoppy voices. West Coast India Pale Ale. And here it says Terpene, Quantum Melson, Solvine, and Quantum Simcoe. IBU, Indigenous Bitterness Unit 70 and 7.0 strong. Then you know you're not being fucked with, but given some nice IPA, one of my favorite types of beer. So this is the last one from this Malasabat box, I already got a new one. So there are 24 great beers waiting for me for the coming streams and all. Maybe October beers will be already taking place. The next stream, I do not know, but we're finishing this box before jumping into that one. Jakubs, no need to play that card. I don't consider, for once, I don't consider you a stupid American. You like your NFL game, that's fine. I'm an NFL fan myself. I'm gonna show you what I mean. I do not know where it is, but my American football is here. So for me, I get the NFL thing going on. I've been waiting to wear this one when the season starts. So for me, American football, yes, I do not care so much about the video game NFL. I tried once with the Tom Brady cover. No, I didn't enjoy it enough to buy another one, but I mean, I get it. NFL, good sports, Call of Duty, fun games, and that American light beer. Why the fuck not? So I get it. For me, I'm personally waiting for NFL season to start. You know, curious fact, by the way, the commander of Steelfest is also an ex-American football player. And by the way, he follows Minnesota Vikings as his team. So sometimes we talk about American football, not just black metal coming to Steelfest. So an anecdote for you to know. Yeah, Phil. IPAs are good stuff, and this kind of goody stuff is really nice. I prefer IPAs in general more than I like, for example, NAPAs. But I don't know if I have a soft sting for West Coast IPA. But having had a few California or West Coast IPA, I mean, yeah, good stuff for sure. Oh, Delicont, I have done at least 2 or 3 Quebec black metal ones. Forteresse and Deletier. Then again, those guys play in other bands as well. And oh yeah, Ivernach is also from Quebec. So at least 3 bands from Quebec black metal. It's funny, actually, now that you mention it, because there have been at least 3 different Quebecois black metal bands playing at Steelfest. So there is some kind of a Canadian Steelfest connection going on. Beer reviews. Well, that's a fresh, refreshing idea. Thank you for suggesting that, Delinquent Dissident. I might actually do that. Yeah, that's a nice idea. Yeah, I get the point about game being pussified and watered down. I still like American football a lot, even though with the rules changes. But I mean, I understand they want to protect the safety of the players. Yeah, Ragnarok, welcome back. Though we are turning down this stream in a bit, and I'm then moving on to a game stream. "1989 Castrol GBX Strike Force." Cannot say I have had that kind of stuff. Yeah, Ragnarok. This is part of the fun of doing these streams to talk shit, drink beer, and enjoy foreign company. Yeah, Delinquent, it must have been the Ifernach interview you're talking about. He is a nice guy for sure. We had a good talk with Finian. This was actually the second time, but the first one on interview, because the first time we talked about at Steelfest, we were talking about sauna culture and all that stuff. Yeah, drink and smoke, all love, baby. That's an interesting story, Phil. Thanks for letting me know. All right, guys, since we're pretty much done with the updates, with this given questions and about interviews and all that stuff, I think it's safe to now predict roughly when the next monthly stream is happening. And if things go as planned, the first I'm sorry, not the first, but the next stream is supposed to happen on September 12th. The first weekend. Okay, now we have our buck here. This kind of I don't know, nocturnal butterflies, flying about. So, the first weekend of September, I will be at Gathering Festival. So obviously, I'm not gonna stream anything then. That would be in 2 weeks anyway. So it seems like 12th of September seems like I should be able to do it. So, dear viewers of the stream, it's time to call it a night. What you're not seeing right here is I'm turning my PlayStation on, which is exactly what it looks like. And it means Assassin's Creed Black Flag is about to start. So I'm gonna take a biological break, turn down this stream, and then start a gaming stream. If you wanna further talk, if you have more time and nothing else to do, just join me on the stream. Do I use the devil's lettuce? I'm not sure what it refers to. But yeah, beer and weed. Good combo sometimes. All right, guys. Thanks for being part of the stream. Catch you in a few weeks again. I'm gonna take a piss, and I'm then moving on to a different stream. So this will now go. Good night, and the next one will start in a couple of minutes. Favorite releases of the year this far. As someone else asked that previously, I'm not ready to discuss favorite release of the year. I will get back to it in January. So yeah, catch you guys later, and good night, unless I see you already on another stream. Off we go.